All right, strap yourselves in because today we are going deep into the world of UG Krishnamurti.
Oh, yeah, he's quite a character.
That's what I'm hearing. I mean, these excerpts you sent me from Mind is a Myth, which is a book full of his conversations. This isn't like, your typical self-help spiritual stuff.
No, not at all.
This is like walking into some intense philosophical debate, one that you might just walk away from questioning like everything.
He really challenges you.
Yeah, and what really strikes me is that he doesn't give you like a path or a belief system.
Right. Completely rejects that, actually.
Yeah, he almost like rejects the whole like guru thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Like he's not interested in being your guru.
Nope.
It seems like he was more interested in like shaking people up and being like, look at reality.
Yeah, kind of shaking people out of their comfort zones and saying, like, look, this is how it is.
Yeah, and so one of the things that stood out to me and I want to get into is this idea that the mind is a myth.
Right.
What did he mean by that?
Well, I think to understand that we need to look back a little bit at his life.
Okay.
So he was born in India in 1918 and was exposed to theosophy early on. And he had this intense interest in spirituality.
Yeah.
But he really became disillusioned with traditional spiritual paths and teachings and thought. This is all just dogma. It's not really getting at anything real.
Yeah.
And so he spent years really searching for something more authentic, something that resonated with him more.
And then on his 49th birthday, he had this really crazy experience that he called the calamity.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds intense, right?
Yeah, it sounds like a mental breakdown of sorts.
Yeah, well, imagine you're sitting in a lecture given by Krishnamurti, the famous philosopher, no relation to UG.
Right, yeah.
And suddenly you recognize yourself in this description of a free man
Oh, wow.
that Krishnamurti is giving. But instead of feeling liberated, you're suddenly hit with all these intense physical sensations, like a near-death experience almost.
So it wasn't this blissful, like, awakening? No, not at
no.
all. So what exactly was he talking about when he said calamity?
He was very strong in saying this wasn't a spiritual transformation, it was physiological. And he really described it as this dismantling of his entire thought structure.
Oh, wow.
A complete collapse of the self that he had built up over his lifetime. And he even said, my head felt like it was missing.
Wow.
So it's almost like the foundation of his reality completely crumbled away.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
And it was from this experience that this idea of the mind being a myth emerged.
Exactly. So he came to believe that the mind, the self, is just this collection of accumulated knowledge, conditioning, and experience. It's not some separate entity that's driving our thoughts and actions. He even said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but thought is simply a response to a challenge as a tool for survival. But he thought that we had turned it into this elaborate story about who we are.
Yeah.
And that story, he argued, is the root of all of our suffering.
So we're basically trapped in our own heads.
Yeah.
Trapped in these stories that we've created about ourselves.
Right, you could say that.
But how do we begin to untangle that?
That's what's so interesting. He doesn't offer solutions or techniques.
Oh, really?
And in fact, he said, and this is a direct quote, there is no way out.
Wow.
So he believed any attempt to kind of escape the mind to achieve enlightenment or liberation is just another thought, another layer to the myth.
So if there's no way out, then what are we supposed to do?
Right.
Like, are we just supposed to resign ourselves to a life of suffering?
He wouldn't even say it like that.
Okay.
He wouldn't say, resign yourself to a life of suffering. It's not about resignation or giving up. It's about recognizing the futility of searching for something outside of yourself.
Right.
Some ultimate truth or state of being. His point was that freedom and peace are already present, but they're obscured by our constant striving, our endless pursuit of something more.
So it's more about letting go of the search itself?
Yeah, absolutely.
The desire for something beyond what is.
You got it.
Okay.
He's really turning things on their head, isn't he?
Yeah. I'm starting to see how this could be both liberating and terrifying. But how does this play out in the real world, in our relationships, in society? Because it's not like he had this super rosy view of humanity.
No, he didn't.
Right.
In fact, he compared society to a jungle.
Right.
Where everyone is driven by self-interest and the pursuit of power.
Yeah.
And he saw love, compassion, even morality as being masks for deeper, more selfish motives.
Wow.
Yeah, he said, man is a worse beast than any in the jungle. Not because we're inherently evil, but because we kill for ideals, for these abstract concepts.
Wow.
Animals, he argued, at least kill for survival.
So he's basically stripping away any idealism that we might have
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
about ourselves and the world that we've created.
Yeah, he's not interested in offering comfort or consolation. He wanted to shatter those illusions, to force us to confront the raw truth of our existence, even if it's unsettling.
Yeah.
And it's from this place of radical honesty.
Mm.
He believed that genuine understanding could emerge.
It sounds like we're just scratching the surface here. There's so much more to unpack in he called it a doom song.
Right.
But I think we need to take a moment to digest what we've learned so far. And then we'll come back and delve deeper into UG.
Sounds good.
All right, so we're back. And I'm still like wrapping my head around all this.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
It's one thing to say the mind is a myth. But what does that mean, like, practically, how we live our lives, how we interact with the world, especially when he's got such a cynical view of society?
Right, but he didn't really advocate for any kind of social change or political change.
Really?
No, he wasn't interested in, revolution or reform or any of that.
Hmm.
He thought that any attempt to try to fix society was just another expression of the mind's desire to control things, to manipulate.
But if we're all just these self-interested creatures battling it out in the jungle, as he put it, isn't that all the more reason to try and create a more just and equitable world?
Right, I think a lot of people would say that.
Yeah.
But his point was that any lasting change can't come from these external systems or ideologies. It
Okay.
has to begin with the individual,
Mm-hmm.
with seeing through this illusion of the self.
Okay.
He said, "You are the world,"
Mm.
implying that our inner state is reflected in the world around us.
So that brings us back to the paradox. If the self is an illusion, how can we even talk about individual change or transformation?
Yeah, it's a bit of a puzzle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Feels like we're going in circles. And I think that circularity is at the heart of his teaching.
Okay.
It's not about arriving at some solution, but it's about continually questioning
Mm-hmm.
our assumptions, peeling back the layers of thought, belief, all these things that we've mistaken for reality.
Yeah. One of the things that is hard for me is his view on love. He basically said it doesn't exist, that it's just another power game. But then at the same time, he talks about this sensitivity that emerges when we let go of the self. So how do those two ideas even go together?
I think it's important to remember he wasn't using love in this romantic, sentimental sense.
Okay.
He was talking about the kind of love that's based on attachment, dependency, need for validation, all those things.
Yeah.
And he saw that as a source of suffering.
Because it's always conditional.
Exactly. Always wanting something back.
Yeah.
So he wasn't against caring for others or feeling connected, but it was a different kind of feeling.
Okay, so he wasn't against, like, caring for people
Not at all.
or feeling connected to them.
He believed that when the illusion of the separate self dissolves, a natural sensitivity just arises. It's not a choice. It's not something you force. It's a spontaneous response to the needs of others.
So it's more about being present,
Yeah, just being responsive in the moment.
not trying to manufacture some ideal version of love.
Right.
Yeah.
It's about acting from a place of wholeness, not lack.
Hmm.
And I think that goes back to his idea of not knowing.
Okay.
When we're not caught up in our thoughts and our desires, we become much more attuned to what's actually happening
Hmm.
around us,
Hmm.
more capable of real connection.
That makes sense. But what about morality? I mean, if we're not supposed to rely on rules or social norms or any of that, then what's to stop us from just behaving badly, harming other people?
Well, this is where he gets even more radical.
Okay.
He saw morality as a human construct,
Okay.
a set of rules that are designed to control behavior,
Right.
regulate it. And he believed that true freedom actually lies in seeing through the limitations of morality,
Mm.
recognizing that good and evil are just concepts,
Right.
not inherent qualities.
That sounds a little dangerous.
I know, a lot of people would say that.
Yeah.
Are we all better off with some kind of moral compass?
Mhm.
But he would say that very notion of a moral compass
Mhm.
is what creates the problem.
Mm.
He thought that this constant striving to be good, to live up to some ideal,
Mm.
is what keeps us trapped.
In a cycle.
Yeah, in this
Mm.
cycle of guilt and self-judgment. And it prevents us from seeing clearly, from acting spontaneously and authentically.
So morality is just another form of self-deception.
You could put it that way.
Another way the mind tries to control reality.
Yeah, to define it
Define it, yeah.
and box it in.
So if we can't rely on morality, we can't rely on traditional spiritual teachings, then what's left? Is there any hope for humanity?
Well, instead of offering solutions,
Mm.
he pointed to what he called the natural state, this
Hmm.
way of being that's free from the constraints of thought, belief, and self-consciousness.
I keep coming back to this, but it still feels so abstract. Is it something that we can achieve, or is it just a concept?
He was very clear that the natural state isn't a goal you can achieve
Okay.
through effort or
Mm.
practice or anything like that.
Mm.
In fact, he said that the very desire to attain it is actually what prevents us from experiencing it. He described it as this state of not knowing, a state of openness, receptivity, free from the filters of thought and conditioning.
Okay, so how did he describe what it felt like to be in that state? Did he give us any clues?
He used these really interesting images like a dry leaf blown about by the wind,
Mm.
completely surrendered to the flow of life.
Wow.
He also talked about this heightened sensitivity,
Okay.
a sense of being fully alive and present.
So it's almost like he's advocating for a kind of blissful ignorance. But how can we function in the world without knowledge or information
Well, I think he would say, we need that. We need knowledge. We need information
to make decisions?
to make decisions, to solve problems, to navigate life. But he wasn't suggesting that we abandon knowledge or intelligence altogether.
Okay.
He recognized that thought is a necessary tool for survival.
Mm-hmm.
But his point was that we've become so identified with our thoughts, with the stories we tell ourselves, that we've lost touch with this raw experience of being alive.
Yeah. It's like we're so busy narrating our lives that we forget to actually live them. But then if we let go of that narrative, if we let go of that sense of self, what's left? To give our lives meaning, purpose, does everything just become meaningless?
This is where it takes another radical turn,
Okay.
because he believed meaning isn't something we find out there in the world. It's something we create through our choices and our actions.
So instead of searching for meaning, we're responsible for creating it.
Yeah, he would say so.
But what if we choose the wrong meaning?
Right, that's a good question.
Yeah.
What if our choices lead to suffering or harm? He wouldn't judge a meaning as right or wrong. He believed every choice has consequences, and we have to live with those consequences.
Okay.
He wasn't advocating for being reckless or disregarding others, but more for this radical sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
He even said, freedom is a terrifying thing because it leaves you with nothing to hold on to.
Wow, so it's daunting. But it's also incredibly liberating because it means we're not bound by some predetermined fate or some external authority.
Right?
I mean, we have the power to shape our lives to create meaning.
Yeah, he would definitely say that.
I'm starting to see why he called his teachings a doom song. It's not sugarcoating anything, but he's also offering this profound sense of freedom.
Yeah, he's really stripping away the illusions, the comforting narratives, and he's forcing us to confront this raw truth.
Yeah.
And in that confrontation, in that willingness to face the unknown, lies the possibility of genuine transformation.
I think we need another break to let this all sink in.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
All right, so we're back, and I gotta say, this is a lot.
It's intense, right?
It really is. It's like he's cracked open this door
Mm-hmm.
to this whole other way of seeing things, and I don't even know if I want to walk through it or just slam it shut.
Yeah, you kind of want to hold on to what you know, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, if the mind is a myth, if all of our thoughts and perceptions are just constructs, does that mean that we can't ever really experience reality? Like, are we stuck in this self-created simulation?
He wouldn't say trapped, I don't think.
Okay.
I think he would just say that's the human condition.
Okay.
We experience the world through these filters, our senses, our thoughts. I mean, that's how we're made.
Yeah.
But he does point to this way of being beyond that filter.
Right, the natural state.
Right.
But I'm still trying to wrap my head around what not knowing actually means.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like blissful ignorance.
It's not about ignorance, though.
Okay.
It's about recognizing the limitations of thought, like how subjective our perceptions really are.
Okay.
Imagine letting go of all your beliefs, your knowledge, even your sense of self.
I can't even picture that.
But it's
Like, what would even be left?
That's the thing. You can't really conceptualize it.
Okay.
You can't strive for it. It's not a goal. He described it more as this state of pure awareness, a direct experience of reality, without thought getting in the way. He used that image of a mirror,
Okay.
reflecting whatever's in front of it,
Yeah.
without judgment, without interpretation.
So it's about becoming more like that mirror, just reflecting what is.
Yeah, without that constant commentary running in our heads.
But wouldn't that make it impossible to function? in the world. I mean, we need our thoughts
Of course.
to make decisions.
To solve problems, yeah.
Yeah, to live our lives.
He wasn't saying we should just abandon knowledge
Okay.
or intelligence. I mean, these are tools that we need.
Yeah.
But the point is, we've become so identified with those thoughts,
Right.
with those stories we tell ourselves,
Right.
that we've lost touch with just the experience of being alive.
So it's like we're so busy narrating our lives that we're not actually living them. But if we let go of the narrative, if we let go of the self, what's left? Like, what gives our lives meaning? Does everything just become meaningless?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
He believed that meaning isn't something that we find out there in the world. It's something we create through our choices, through our actions.
So instead of searching for meaning,
We make it.
we're responsible for it.
Yeah.
But what if we choose the wrong meaning? What if our choices lead to suffering?
You wouldn't judge it as right or wrong.
Okay.
Every choice has consequences,
Yeah.
and we have to live with them.
Okay.
So it's not about being reckless or disregarding others. It's about taking responsibility for those choices. He said, freedom is a terrifying thing because it leaves you with nothing to hold on to.
So it is terrifying, but it's also incredibly liberating because it means we're not bound by destiny or fate or anything like that.
Right. It's all to us.
Yeah, we have the power to create our lives, to make meaning. I think I'm finally starting to understand why he called it a doom song. He's not sugarcoating anything, but he's also giving us this like immense freedom.
It's freedom with responsibility.
Yep.
He's stripping away the illusions, the comforting stories,
Yeah.
and forcing us to look at the truth.
And in that willingness to face the unknown, that's where the transformation is.
That's where it's all at. Yeah.
Well, this has been quite the deep dive. I know I'll be thinking about all this for a long time.
It stays with you, that's for sure.
It really does. It's like, I don't even know if I agree with all of it, but it's definitely made me question everything.
That was his goal.
Yeah, so I hope it sparks some of that in you too, listener, because ultimately this journey of self-discovery, it's yours.
That's all yours.
And as UG might say, don't believe a word I said. Find out for yourself.
Exactly.